Please join me in welcoming to the Global Growth Summit, Kristy Gaisford. Kristy Gaisford is an individual and relationship therapist with a master's degree in social work from Columbia University. She is certified in relational life therapy, founded by an internationally recognized family therapist, Terry Real. She has a private practice in Salt Lake City, Utah, and she specializes in relationships. She also works with Intermountain Healthcare's Primary Children's Hospital, providing therapeutic interventions for patients and families. She regularly conducts seminars on healthy self-esteem, relationships, and how to live a healthier life. Here's Kristy's powerful presentation, How to Build a Healthy Company Culture from the Inside Out.
Hi, I'm Kristy Gaisford, and I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, which is relationships. We know that relationships are really important and they affect our happiness and our well-being. And all businesses and all companies are made up of human beings. As human beings, we all have certain things in common. We all want to be appreciated. We want to know that what we do matters. And we want to know that what we spend our time doing every day is making a difference in the world on some level. Research has shown that the happiest people at companies have two things in common. The first thing is that they have an equal amount of time to speak, which translates to the fact that people respect them. They want to know what they have to say, and they value their contribution. The second thing they have in common is that they understand how each other operates at a personal level. So they've taken the time to get to know each other. They understand how the other people on the team think, how they feel, and if they have that, they're going to have a sense of safety, and they're going to take less offense at things, they're going to give the benefit of the doubt, and it's going to be a better place to work. So we know this. We know that people want to be appreciated. So what gets in the way of creating this in our companies? I want you to think about the most difficult relationship in your life. And I want you to think for a minute about what it is that makes that relationship so difficult. You're probably all thinking that it's the other person, right? But what makes it difficult really is the fact that we're human and we have flaws, we all have egos, we get tired, we get stressed out, and we take things out on the people around us, and it creates damage. The other thing is that we're not taught. We think we're going to grow up and someday we're going to be an adult and we're going to know how to function in a healthy way in the world. And we get to be adults and we realize that we still don't know. A lot of us were never taught healthy self-esteem or healthy boundaries. And I see people in my private practice on a daily basis that don't know how to have a healthy self-esteem. They've never been taught boundaries, and they say, this all sounds really great, but I have no idea how to do it. And as businesses, we can have great ideals and we can set up great goals for our company, but if the people on an individual level don't know how to be healthy and have healthy relationships with their coworkers on an interpersonal level, it won't matter very much what we set up on a corporate or a management level. So I want to talk to you today about how to be healthy yourself, how to have healthier relationships with those around you, and how you can take that back to your company and set up a more healthy company culture. About 10 years ago, I went to a training that was given by one of my greatest mentors, Terry Real, and it really changed my life. And today I'm going to talk to you about the things I learned there, and I hope it will change your life. Terry Real is an author and a relationship therapist, and he's graciously allowed me to use this here today. So this is the relationship grid that was created by Terry Real, and I'm going to take some time explaining it to you today. The first axis going up and down is self-esteem, and the second axis going horizontally is boundaries. So what does healthy self-esteem look like? Healthy self-esteem is I'm a person of value and I have the same value as every other human being in this world. And I have an inherent value because I exist. A good example of this is in our emergency rooms. You can have the wealthiest, most famous person in the world come through the door at the same time as a homeless man, and they're going to be triaged based on need. One of those persons, one of their lives is not valued more than the other. Our society is not good at teaching that at all. We're raised from a young age thinking that if people that are better looking, people that are wealthier, people that have higher positions or power are worth more than others. But it's not true. Another thing that we have a lot in our culture today is that we are okay if other people think we're okay. And that's gotten worse and worse with social media, because it's all about likes and how many people see us, and we value ourselves based on what other people think of us. But if I have a healthy self-esteem, it comes from the inside out. Nothing I do can make me worth more, and nothing I do can make me worth less. I know how to love myself and hold myself in warm regard as a flawed human. So I know I make mistakes. I know that I'm not perfect, and that's okay. I also know that I do things well, that I have qualities and good qualities and strengths, and that it's important that I try each day to be better. If I have a healthy self-esteem, I'm going to feel proportionately bad about the things that I do wrong. It's not going to be out of proportion though. So if I'm a good employee, I work hard and I do really good work and I make a mistake, I'm going to feel bad about the mistake. I'm going to think, okay, I'm a good employee, but I messed up. What do I need to make it better? I need to do this and this and make sure it doesn't happen again. But it's going to stay there. So if I don't have a healthy self-esteem, I'm prone to slide into shame. So down here is shame. What that looks like is, oh my gosh, I can't believe I messed up. I'm so stupid. I'm the worst employee. I don't deserve to be here. Sometime soon they're going to figure out that I'm a fraud and I have no idea what I'm doing. Oh, I'm so dumb, right? We go into this shame storm where we feel less than other people, and we really question our worth as a human being. Now, when we're in shame, we have contempt for ourselves, and it doesn't feel good. And some people spend a lot more time there than other people. Some of us don't like to feel shame. It doesn't feel good, and so we flip from shame up into grandiosity. And I'll give you an example of that. So you're at work and you feel good about yourself and you're working hard and you're focused on the project that you're on and things are going well. You're in a healthy place. And suddenly you get word that your coworker just got promoted. That calls your own worth into question. Why did they get promoted and I didn't? What did I do wrong? Why does everybody seem to be passing me up? Okay, so if you don't like that feeling, you might start making things up to make yourself feel better. Such as, well, the only reason she got promoted is because she's such a brown noser, and I would never want to be like that. Or the only reason he got promoted above me is because his dad knows the president. It's all who you know. So that you flip from shame up into grandiosity so you can feel better. Because grandiosity feels good, at least for a while. It feels good to look down your nose at other people in judgment, to feel like you're better than. When you're in grandiosity, you're not in pain, but everybody around you is in pain. You're not pleasant to be around, and you have contempt for others. So a lot of us live in shame more than health, and some of us spend a lot of time in grandiosity. Most of us fluctuate, and we can fluctuate many times throughout a day depending on what's going on, and we have to adjust how we feel. And it's so important to learn when you're going down into shame to recognize it and pull yourself back up. When you're going up into grandiosity, to recognize it and pull yourself back down. You're not better or worse than anybody else. So now I'm going to talk about the other axis, which is boundaries. In order to have a healthy self-esteem or to be a healthy person, we have to have two boundaries. The first boundary is an internal boundary, and it protects the world from you. So, like I said, we all get angry, we feel shamed, we feel embarrassed, we have anxiety, we have insecurities. If we have a good boundary, we're going to rumble with all those difficult feelings, and we're going to deal with them in a healthy way inside. If we don't have a boundary that contains that, we're going to spew all of our junk out onto everybody around us. So we're going to have temper tantrums, we might have road rage, we might yell at people, have unbridled self-expression. All kinds of unhealthy things are going to come out and do harm. The other boundary that we need to have is out here, and it protects us from the world. So if I don't have a healthy boundary, external boundary out here, then anything anybody says or does or thinks about me is going to come right through and hit me. And I'm going to feel defensive, and I'm either going to go into shame, or I'm going to wall off and withdraw, or I'm going to come out swinging. So how could you say that about me? I can't believe you think that about me. How could you do this to me? You're the one that this, and this, right? So we react really poorly. But if we have a boundary protecting us from the world, it gives us a space. Viktor Frankl has a quote that says, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. And in that space, we have a choice. And that's the space that I'm talking about. So say you're at a review with your boss, and your boss says to you, you're often late, you don't seem as engaged as you used to be, and I've heard that you're not a team player. Now, if I don't have a boundary, that's going to hurt, and I'm going to feel pretty devastated or angry or defensive. But if I have a boundary, I can give myself some time and look at it with curiosity, right? So the first thing, you're often late. I can stop and ask myself, is that true? Okay, I know I've been late 2 or 3 times this quarter, and that's true. I feel bad about that, but I wouldn't say it's often. So you can respond to that. You're right, I've been late 2 or 3 times, and I will do better. The next thing, okay, am I less engaged? Let me think about it. You know, I feel like I'm engaged, but I also feel like I've been left out and haven't been brought into things early on. And so I feel like I'm always behind trying to catch up. And I feel like I'm brought to the table later than other people. And so if you feel like I'm less engaged, I think it's because I feel like I'm not being involved soon enough in the process. Then you can talk about that. And then the last thing, and I've heard that you're not a team player. Do I think that's true? You can ask yourself, I don't think that's true. So can you please give me some specific examples of how that's true, why you're saying that? Then it gives you a space. It doesn't, what other people say or think about you doesn't have to affect your own self-worth, because you have your own opinion and you sift through all of the things that come at you all day. That's just an example of that. So on one side of the grid, it says boundaryless. So those are the people, too much is coming out and too much is getting in. On the other side, if your walls become too strong, if your boundaries are too strong, they become a wall. So on the other side of the grid is walled off. Now, if you're walled off, you're not letting enough in and you're not letting enough out. And you all probably know somebody who is not very receptive to feedback. None of us like to get feedback that's not positive, but some of us are better at it than others. So what a wall can look like is, hey, I have some feedback for you, and they say, that's not true. I'm not like that. No, I'm not. Or, yeah, you're right, that is how it is. I am like that. That's just who I am. Or they might have a wall of pleasant, and they might say, oh, thank you so much for letting me know. I will work on that. And then they go back and do exactly what they were doing before. So there's all different kinds of walls. They can look different, but the thing that's always true is that if somebody's walled off, you cannot engage with them. And this is something that's pretty interesting, I think. When somebody is walled off, they're usually walled off to themselves as well. They are avoiding looking at themselves and doing their own work. So they might even be walled off to, they might even believe the things that they tell you. They don't want to know. And they probably think they can't handle it, so they just rather believe that they're perfect. Okay? So those are the axes, and now I'm going to talk about the 4 different quadrants in the grid. And as I talk about them, I want you to really think about a time when you've been in each of these quadrants and a time when you've been with somebody who's in the quadrants. So when we get triggered, when our self-esteem and our self-worth is called into question, we feel triggered and we feel like a rush of emotion and we feel like fight or flight, like we're not in control of our feelings. And that's when we go to one of these quadrants. So the first quadrant is if you tend to get triggered and go one up into grandiosity and you don't have a boundary, that's an angry and a controlling quadrant. And all violence and all abuse takes place in this quadrant. And the reason this happens is because you are one up, so you think you have a right to do whatever you want, and you have no boundary to stop you. So people in this quadrant can be dangerous. And when people are around you, when you're in this quadrant, they feel like they're walking on eggshells because anything could set you off. I was talking with a doctor last week who said that he recognized that whenever he was questioned at work about a decision he made on a patient, he would get triggered and he would go one up and think, how dare you question me? I'm the expert here. But he had enough insight to know that that wasn't a healthy response and that it wasn't healthy for the culture of the hospital or for the patient. So he did some inner work. He recognized his triggers, and he said now when somebody questions him, he pulls himself down from grandiosity and he thanks the person for asking the question, because he knows that it's better for everybody if we have that kind of a culture. So that's an example of feeling triggered and being able to do your own work to get back to a healthier place. Okay, the next quadrant is if you get triggered and you tend to go down into shame, so you feel like you're less than other people and you don't have a boundary. That's a very needy quadrant. It's a desperate feeling, and it can be manipulative, and it feels like I'm bad and I can't make myself feel better, so I need you to make me feel better. So the kind of feeling from that quadrant is, don't leave me, don't fire me, please love me, I'll do anything you want me to do, just please accept me. When people are around other people that are in that quadrant, it can feel needy and kind of annoying, like I just don't know what to do for you. But employees can be in this quadrant because something that's different in a work environment is that we do need a job. And we have to pay our bills and we have to provide for our families. And so we can get into a place where we feel like there's an unhealthy power differential, and our boss is saying, you do this or else. And so if there's no respect there, an employee can feel desperate. And they might stay there for a while because they need a job, but it doesn't take long before that it becomes toxic. All right, the next quadrant is if you tend to get triggered and you go one up into grandiosity and you wall off. That is passive aggressive, it's indifferent, it's kind of a mean quadrant. And it's one of my personal favorites because you can feel like you don't care for a while, but it's not healthy. So when you're with somebody in that quadrant, it feels like, you know what, I don't really need your opinion, I don't care what you have to say. You're not important enough for me to talk to. It's like when you're at a meeting and somebody keeps looking over your shoulder the whole time they're talking to you, looking for somebody who's more important. It's that kind of a feeling. And it's when you're with somebody who's like that, it feels very condescending and uncaring. A lot of employees feel like this in big corporations where all the rules are made at the top and they're funneled down to the people below. And all the rules at the top affect the lives of all the people below, but they had no say in it. And the people above don't care what they have to say, that the message is conform or else. And this is a demoralizing place to be and to work. And people might conform at first, but after a while, they start to resent the employer, and there's a really high turnover rate because of that. There's also retaliation. People might retaliate by disengaging, by stealing company time or resources, all sorts of things, but it doesn't go well because we don't like to feel that way. And the last quadrant is if you get triggered and you go into shame and you wall off. That's a depressed quadrant, it's resigned, and it's the feeling of why bother. I once had a boss where I worked so hard, I thought I did a lot of good things, but because of the culture today, people are so busy that they're always putting out fires. You might never see your boss until there's a problem. And this was the case for me. So I would never hear from my boss unless I did something wrong. And then it would be, I heard about this, what did you do, how can we fix it? And I started to feel like, oh my gosh, I do 99 things right, and I work so hard every single day, and I never see my boss unless I do something wrong. And it feels, employees in that situation just start to feel like, why should I even bother? Nobody cares about all the efforts that I'm putting in. They only talk to me about the one mistake I made. And so there again is high turnover rate and a really poor culture at a company. So that is the grid. Were you able to place yourself on the grid? I love this grid because it's prescriptive. So it helps you find your own dysfunctional behaviors and how to get back to a centered, healthy place. So I told you I like the one up, walled off quadrant once in a while. When I'm up there, I know that I'm not in a healthy place. And I might not want to come down immediately, but at least I know that it's going to harm people around me and myself if I stay there. So anytime we leave the place of health and go into one of these quadrants, we do pay. There is a payback in the people around us and in ourselves. So I just want to close by giving some advice for creating a better company culture by using this grid. Whenever you're going to have a hard conversation with an employee, the first step is to get yourself in a healthy place. Make sure you're in center. If you're still standing in judgment of the person, you're one up, or you're angry, or you're frustrated, pull yourself down and don't have a conversation until you're in a good place. Then remember who you're talking to. This is a human being who has as much value as you do. There's somebody's family member who loves them, and they're doing their best. They're working hard to provide for their families. So get yourself centered and focus on the person. The third thing is focus on the positive. They need to hear that you see them, that you see the efforts they're putting in every day, that you see the difference that they're making, however small their sphere is, they're doing it in their sphere. Then ask them to talk first and listen. When you ask about the problem, get their perspective. They probably have a totally different perspective than you. They have a different experience, and they bring different insights to the situation. And the last thing I want to talk about is repair. So I said I've been doing this work and using this grid for almost 10 years. And on a bad day, I still slide into all of these quadrants. But the difference is when I do that, I know that I've done that. I know that I'm not in a healthy place, and I know how to correct it. So if you're a leader and you know that you've gone one up and boundaryless, and you've yelled at or snapped at an employee, it makes such a difference if you go back to that employee and say, hey, I realized that I misbehaved the other day and I snapped at you in our team meeting. I was stressed out and I shouldn't have acted that way, and I hope you can forgive me. I know it's not okay. That builds a culture where you don't have to be perfect and where you have the humility and the vulnerability to say you're sorry, which is going to allow your employees to have the courage to also be human and to come to you and say, hey, I'm in over my head. I really need help here, and I'm wondering if you can please help me. That will save so much on the other end of trying to fix problems, because when people don't feel like they can come forward and ask for help, they hide things and they blame other people, and it goes the opposite direction. So that's all that I have for today. I hope this was helpful. I hope you can take this back to your companies and apply it where it will be the most useful to you. If you'd like more information about the relationship grid, you can find it in The New Rules of Marriage by Terry Real, and you can find me online. Thank you.